Ukraine on the brink of a systemic crisis. Ministers' resignations as a test for the government's resilience. Tensions are escalating within Ukraine's political landscape, threatening to develop into one of the most profound government crises in recent times. What had been a subject of cautious discussion for many months within narrow circles of the political elite and in the corridors of the expert community has now spilled into the public arena, taking the form of an open and harsh confrontation. The epicenter of this storm is an unprecedented move by the head of state. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in his official Telegram channel, launched a sharp criticism against two key members of his cabinet of ministers. He referred to the Minister of Justice, Herman Galushchenko, and the Minister of Energy, Svitlana Hrynchuk. The head of state issued an ultimatum demanding their immediate resignation, citing allegations of involvement in corrupt schemes. In his address, Zelenskyy was straightforward and severe. "I believe that the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy cannot remain in their positions. This is a matter not only of law, but of fundamental trust. If there is an accusation, one must be held accountable." This phrase instantly spread across all news agencies and became the slogan of the escalating scandal. The context in which this situation is unfolding adds a particular tragedy. Ukraine has been living under severe energy crisis conditions for several months now. Massive Russian attacks on critical infrastructure have resulted in millions of Ukrainians facing rolling blackouts daily. Amid the winter cold, people are forced to endure freezing temperatures in their homes, businesses operate intermittently, and the economy suffers colossal losses. Against this backdrop, any mention of corruption in the energy sector is perceived by society not merely as an offense, but as an act of national betrayal. This is precisely why Zelenskyy placed special emphasis on this aspect in his statement, stressing that under current conditions, such actions are absolutely unacceptable. The alleged corruption schemes are linked to the name of businessman Timur Mindich, who, according to journalistic investigations, held significant influence over resource allocation and contract awards in a number of strategic energy projects. The president also announced the introduction of personal sanctions against two individuals involved in this case, promising that punishment would be inevitable. From a formal standpoint, Zelenskyy acted within his powers. He stated that he had already instructed the Prime Minister of Ukraine to ensure the submission of official resignation statements from the mentioned ministers. The next step will be a vote in the Verkhovna Rada, where deputies must decide whether to support or reject this decision. This process will be the first indicator of whether the president retains sufficient support in parliament to carry out such unpopular personnel decisions. Ukrainian political analysts and experts in anti-corruption policy have long warned that to maintain the trust of both international partners and their own society, the authorities would have to make painful decisions and sacrifice certain figures previously considered untouchable and under the implicit patronage of the highest echelons of power. Now, it is generally believed that such a moment of truth has arrived. However, the reaction of Ukrainian society has turned out to be much more complex and ambiguous than what was likely expected in the presidential administration. Despite the demonstration of resolve and political rhetoric aimed at fighting corruption, many citizens, weary of years of promises and slow reforms, perceive the resignation of two ministers not as the beginning of a genuine cleansing of power, but as a tactical maneuver designed to save the shaken reputation of Volodymyr Zelenskyy himself. This skepticism is fueled by information that emerged during previous court proceedings related to the case. These proceedings contain not direct accusations, but hints of the possible involvement of people from the president's inner circle, his old associates, and confidants. This raises an alarming question. Are the resignations of Galushchenko and Hrynchuk merely a sacrifice intended to stop the investigation from progressing further and prevent it from reaching a higher level? Thus, as analysts fear, the threads of this scandal may lead much higher than it seems at first superficial glance. Within Ukrainian society, on social media, and in expert discussions, a thought is increasingly heard. If corruption is a systemic problem permeating the state apparatus from top to bottom, then simple personnel reshuffles, no matter how high profile, cannot change the very essence of the problem. They only create an illusion of active action, temporarily calming public discontent without eradicating its root causes. And therefore, the main question today is no longer whether the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy will leave their posts. The likelihood of their resignation is high. The main question now is whether Volodymyr Zelenskyy will be able to convince the war-torn and crisis-weary Ukrainian society, as well as his Western allies, that he himself and his immediate team are not an integral part of this vicious system. After all, as political history has repeatedly demonstrated, in state governance, what sometimes matters is not so much the action itself, but whether people believe in the leader's sincerity and purity of intentions. Thus, current events are no longer just another corruption scandal in a series of many. This is a genuine moment of truth for the entire Ukrainian government, a stern test of its honesty, transparency, and actual ability to overcome what continues to weaken and destroy the country from within, even amidst external aggression, all-pervasive corruption. The outcome of this test will determine not only the political future of specific individuals, but also the degree of trust in state institutions as a whole.